Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Treasury, she was out there talking to us for a couple of years after 2020, saying, inflation's not a problem. Don't worry about it. We're not going to see inflation. That's what she was saying. Okay. Now, Janet Yellen is insisting, and I'm sure you can see that screen. Janet Yellen says that the United States of America can certainly afford multiple wars. We can afford 2 wars, says Janet Yellen. We can afford to be be giving money to the group in Eastern Europe. Got to be careful, guys. You know how the algorithm is. And we can also afford to participate in the new conflict in the Middle East. Now, look, again, we're not covering this from a political standpoint. You might have feelings one way or the other. Fine with me. But look, war costs money. And looks like we're doling out a lot of it. So Yellen is saying that we got the wherewithal to do it. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Let's see what she's got to say here. And remember, as I go through this, just mentally bring up in your mind the national debt. All right, we got Janet Yellen, U.S. Secretary, U.S. Treasury Secretary, said the country can absolutely afford to financially support both Israel and Ukraine in their respective war efforts. President Biden went forward and posted on Twitter on Sunday. He reiterated Washington's unwavering support with your money for Israel and its war against Palestine militant group Hamas, and said he had provided the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, with an update on both U.S. military support and efforts to protect civilians as the conflict escalates. Okay, fine. They're saying we can afford this, but at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, that unfunded liability amount was over $100 trillion. All right. I always say that we got a lot of, they say charity begins at home. We got a lot of stuff going on here in America. I know right here in the Baltimore area, got a lot of homeless children on the streets of Baltimore as we go into the winter. They don't seem to be a priority as much as a priority as other countries, and let's just call them new Americans. And as far as immigrants are concerned, look, if you live in a part of the world that is, repressive or not economically progressive, not politically progressive, economically, then I get it. But it seems like there aren't many young women and children coming over. And New York, Chicago, they're feeling the strain of it big time. Now, this is all your money, okay, that is financing all of this. So we got Janet Yellen. She's saying, no problem. We can afford it. Don't worry. It's your money. We know. So let's talk about the American dream, because what's happening is that American dream is, for many, turning into a nightmare, especially when you go to a grocery store and you realize that flour is up 100%. We did a video on that and showed you the price increase. Okay. You got staples like butter up 43%. Now, when you look at specific items, we're definitely in a hyperinflationary environment. And how do we get into a hyperinflationary environment or an inflationary environment? We spend a lot of money. Okay. The U.S. spends an inordinate amount of money. It puts more money out there on the market, thereby putting you in a position where you got to bring more dollars to the table to purchase the same or a lesser amount of stuff. Now, I was making some notes before we started this. Inflation spending on 2 wars is going to cause more inflation. So get ready for prices to increase further, because we're extending ourselves further economically. Who wins? Okay, who wins in this scenario? Of course, the Raytheons, the General Dynamics, the Bechtels, the Northrop Grummans. They win big because, let's face it, governments pay, okay? And every time you fire off some sort of weapon, be it a rifle or a missile, you need another one, right? So those companies are winning, right? They're getting very wealthy. And if you look at the portfolios of a lot of members of Congress, they are invested in those corporations. Them or their significant others is one way they get around that. So we're seeing a certain portion of the population get extremely rich, a small portion. Don't worry, we're going to talk about what we need to do. Okay. Just to let you guys know, just some anecdotal evidence of what's going on here. So in the Bethesda area, which is right outside Washington, D.C., you've got high-end sports car dealers like Ferrari, um, Porsche. It's because that's Rome. And all those people within the boundaries of 495, which is the beltway that encircles DC, there's a lot of money flowing in there because of things like this, because of Janet Yellen saying, hey, look, we can afford it, because of President Biden saying, hey, look, we'll throw as much money at it as we need to. And all the while, it's increasing prices for us and diminishing our ability to purchase assets. Okay. And for some, it's even taken away what they own because they're having to liquidate assets in order just to be able to make the mortgage or rent, buy food, things of that nature. Okay. Credit card delinquencies are up. We talked about that on a previous video. We've got a situation where this country has $1.7 trillion of student loan debt that's now due. And we also have over $1 trillion in credit card debt collectively. So the consumer, the taxpayer, is strapped. All right. So we got the Raytheons and the defense contractors and the lobbyists and the Congress people. You know, the Congress people come in and they're of modest income and then they leave and they're tremendously wealthy. Has anyone ever looked into that? Of course not. So the rich are getting richer while we're watching the working poor and the middle class be just crushed under an avalanche of inflation, higher interest rates, okay, government spending, okay. So we're seeing that occur. And look, when they raised interest rates back in the 80s, when they did it aggressively, when Paul Volcker was the Fed chair, look, they raised them aggressively. We went into a recession and they came out of it and they were able to lower those rates. That's not what's happening this time. And I'm going to tell you why they are not raising rates as aggressively this time. But before I do that, let me just weigh in with some of the folks who made comments. T. Roy weighing in from Alabama. I did a work study program in Huntsville, Alabama, way back in the day. Okay, I'm not sure where you are in relation to Huntsville, but back then it was. I tell you what, when it got dark at night, it got dark at night. I loved it. Okay, it was very rural, way back when. This was wow, this was the early '90s. Yeah, no, it was the late '80s actually. Yeah. Maria, 28, says Yellen the felon. I like that. Yes, that is when you look at the lie she told. Okay, now she's supposed to be some economics professor, which could lend credence to why she can't really prosecute the job she has now because she's all theory, very light on application. But Yellen, she just insisted for almost a year that there would be no inflation. And we were on this channel saying this is impossible because when you flood the street with federal government fiat currency, it's just an economic principle. Okay. I am not an economist, but I did take a macroeconomics class. I know the economic principle that says when you flood the street with money, you're going to get inflation. She knows that. She couldn't have. This is like the most basic economic lesson. She knew it. She lied. Okay. And here we are. So yeah, Yellen the felon. I'm all with that.